All righty, welcome, 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 dear friends and fellow broadcasters. We're about to get underway, and it's a big, big celebration today, and we're thrilled that so many people are here. And if some are sort of dribbling in, that's okay too. I'm Jordan Rich, WBZ Radio. Pleasure to be back. I've got one table that really, I paid them well. Thank you very much. And this is a celebration. I have something important to mention very quickly about parking. Remember when we went parking as teenagers, Morgan? Not you and me, but no. There's a yellow slip, very small, tiny little slip with a QR code on it. So all of you who parked can park for free. Where is the yellow slip, you may ask? It's outside at the registration desk. So if you didn't get one yet, make sure you get one on the way out. All you do is take your phone, place it up to the QR code, and it somehow works magically. Don't ask me how, but you will park for free. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to do, so we want to get started. Please feel free to eat, munch. Food is great here, and the hotel does a super job. Before we begin the festivities and the induction ceremonies, we'd like to remember one Hall of Famer who left us this year, a truly singular wit and a man of great knowledge and wisdom and humor, Mr. Dick Flavin. So we'd like to just remember Dick. There he is. One of the many voices at Fenway Park. And this is not in the script, but I did want to mention it. There's a gentleman who just passed a few weeks ago or shortly thereafter by the name of Bob Bittner. Now, if you don't know that name, let me just tell you real quick. Bob Bittner is not a member of the Hall of Fame. Maybe someday he will be. But he was one of these rare broadcasters who actually ran a radio station, former WCAS, now WJIB, all by himself. Didn't sell advertising, relied on the public for help, and the public loved him, his public. So we want to wish Bob, wherever he is, fun in the next life. But he was a great, great example of what broadcasting is all about. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce a gentleman who is really instrumental. He's done so much for this organization over the last several years. He's a great guy and a true broadcaster from way back. Please welcome Peter Brown.
Jordan, what does way back actually mean? We should define that a little bit. I was just saying to Mary Ellen Lynch, what a party. This is tremendous. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. And thank you for joining us as we recognize 6 gifted individuals and welcome them into the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Each of them with their own unique talents, each of them distinguishing themselves for their commitment to their craft. We look forward to highlighting them this afternoon. To our audience today, as you witness their induction, I want you to think of 2 words: trust and respect. Their audiences have trusted our inductees over the years to provide news, information, entertainment, or education. And respect, in turn, is the bond that has linked each of our inductees to their audiences to make a lasting connection. Let me take note of those we are recognizing today. We have an educator and a former DJ who is a true pioneer for her dedication to teaching the next generation and honoring the past. She has an eye for talent and an ear for rock and roll. Just ask the band Rush. We have a music man who knows how to amplify the sounds of communities so their voices can be heard and a tapestry of vibrant cultures can be embraced and celebrated. His commitment to broadcasting stands as a beacon to what is best, bringing people together through the arts. We have two inspiring storytellers. One who uses his words to create pure poetry, who leans on his enduring street cred to shine a light on the stories that aren't always the lead or on the front page. And one of our storytellers has used his words with pictures to capture the life of our New England towns. In his core, he was a Texan, an adventurous spirit who had boundless energy and endless optimism, a mentor to so many in the media, many of you in this room today. He seized all that life had to offer. One of our inductees today is the person who captured the pictures that reporters depended on to weave together the fabric of their narrative and to create a memorable moment in television time. He may have been a first, but we are recognizing him today for being among the very best. And then, we've got the sports guy. Oh, he covered the Pats, the Sox, the Bruins and Celts. It's almost tough to say. But this inductee is so much more than the highlights. It was all about highlighting the true essence of sports and the people who played the games for the love of it. And for that, we give him our high five. As we recognize our inductees today, I also want to say thank you to the people who have made and make this event possible each year. The Massachusetts Broadcasters Association, the board and its chair, Kyle Grimes, and its executive director, Jordan Walton. Donnie, you beat me to the applause. A special acknowledgement as well to one of the first members of the Hall of Fame Selection Committee who stepped down this past year to enjoy more of her retirement, if there is such a thing for our beloved Lynn Osborne. And of course, the Hall of Fame Committee. Would the NBA and the Hall of Fame Committee please stand or raise your hand and be recognized for your contributions to help us reach this special day? Please stand or raise your hand. And it's always a pleasure to acknowledge those already inducted into the Hall of Fame who are with us today. Would you stand or raise your hand and be recognized? I want to thank all of our sponsors for their support. You will see their names in the program book with bios of each of our inductees. And last but not least, to the students at Curry College who are helping us, and the talented tech team in the back of the room who are in control of our production. We are in your hands. Be gentle. We appreciate your contribution. Now, to all of you, our audience, I have a request. We encourage you to nominate someone who you believe is deserving of induction into the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Recommendations can be made at any time during the year. The Hall of Fame Committee will begin the process of choosing inductees for 2024 in the fall of this year. If you visit the Mass Broadcasters Hall of Fame website, you will see the link to fill out the nomination form. We encourage you to do so with as much information of the nominee as possible. Again, all of this information is in your program book. To the inductees who enter the Hall of Fame today, they are joining more than 150 others who have been the bedrock of Massachusetts broadcasting for generations. It is now our turn. It is now their turn to be honored for all they have given to their audiences. And it is our turn to say thank you and congratulations and welcome to the Hall of Fame. Thanks.
Yes, the Emerson Tech team, thank you guys. Your job is now at the ready because we've got some amazing videos to showcase our nominees and now our inductees. So first, if you would bring your attention to the screen, this is to honor Mr. Pat Costa.
How did it all start? In 1987, record producer Pat Costa had a chance encounter with the then unknown boy band called the New Kids on the Block.
We were very fortunate enough to record their very first album here in my studio in 1987. And from there, that sort of gave us the kickoff of getting into the radio business. That gave me the funds that I needed, you know, to buy my first radio station.
A year later, his newly formed family business called Costa Communications purchased WNNW.
We started with this motivation program, which was a unique idea at the time. But unfortunately, it didn't catch on. People didn't know what motivation was.
It was then that good friend and Latin radio producer Enrique Matos came to Costa with the suggestion of doing a Hispanic show on the weekends. When no station in Merrimack Valley was producing programming for Hispanic and Latino listeners, Costa Communications answered the call, with not one, but 2 radio stations addressing the concerns and musical tastes of the Spanish-speaking community, and giving them a voice like never before in this culturally rich area.
Well, that was a nice, brief video introduction. And now to formally introduce our first recipient today, we welcome Jose Villafañe. Jose is the managing partner for Costa Media, an audio-centric media company focused on the U.S. Latin audience in underserved markets. Jose is a multimedia and Hispanic broadcaster with a management team involved with more than 50 years' experience in radio sales, programming, and marketing. And he's here to introduce our first inductee.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good lunch so far. Good afternoon. Okay, nice manners. Okay. When Pat asked me to take on this responsibility, it was I felt very honored and privileged to do this. As you can see from the video, he's a pioneer and a visionary of what today has become the norm, right? Spanish language radio music has surpassed over $1 billion in sales around the world. And it's a format that continues to grow versus the other formats that have declined. Pat not only is a colleague, but a pioneer in the radio business in Massachusetts. He's a mentor and a teacher for introducing me to local station ownership and operations. Thank you, Pat. When I first talked to Pat on the phone, I thought he was a fellow Latino. Costa, right? That could be deceiving because of the vowel at the end of the name. But when I walked into his office 2+ years ago, I was staring at pretty much Joe Pesci. The way he talked, the way his mannerisms, he's Italian. It was just, needless to say, it was love at first sight. We really got along being that I grew up in New York City. And he was a character, which I feel I am the same. My point is, regardless of backgrounds, languages, or multi-generations, radio or our business, broadcasting brings people together. Patrick Costa first got into radio in 1988 with the purchase of the VNH, which we just saw. Today's Impacto, which is one of 2 radio stations in Spanish with the format that Pat owns in greater Boston Metro. But way before Pat became a broadcaster, his first love was the drums. Being a musician, and I got to see that last year on his 75th birthday. It was an amazing to see him and his family surrounded there. One of his many successes in career was also the sound engineer and producer for the first New Kids on the Block record, which was done at his location in Methuen, and which he also won a platinum record, which we saw in the video as well. As Pat continued his journey as a broadcaster and grew his station ownership in partnership with Eagle Tribune newspaper group, he was able to strengthen his coverage of the market with extra signals. Today, Pat owns 4 signals with 4 different formats: Impacto, Power, Valley, and the Moose. But Pat's passion and love for music, sound, and broadcasting could not have happened without the support of his family. First, his wife, Sally, of 53 years. They were high school sweethearts, and they still very much in love, young at heart since the day they met. Sally, can you get up for a second? Everybody can see you. I asked Sally to get up because we know we don't do all that we do on a day-to-day basis with our partners at home or our families that are here united to celebrate Pat's history in radio. Secondly, his supportive parents, Jim and Lucy Costa, who supported his interests and career choices, and they were a very big part of Pat's family that he holds very dearly in his heart. But last but not least, his grandfather, Alfio, who had the biggest influence in Pat's life. In the words of Pat, my grandfather was a hardworking man with a tough appearance and was well respected in the community. He supported my dreams and always encouraged me to follow my heart. He bought me my first microphone and supported my decisions with good advice and unconditional love. I would not be here without his support. Thank God for Grandpa Alfio. I heard the story for Alfio of Pat's grandfather at my first visit with Pat, and it always stayed with me. I had the privilege to know Pat for 2+ years now, and his energy and passion for the business are contagious. His advice on how to run a business and broadcast media are sound. Since we met, he's seen me and support my hustle to grow my own business, and his words always stay in the back of my head. Stay focused and stay strong. Stay focused and stay strong. I feel sometimes Pat is passing the wisdom of his grandfather Alfio to me and my generation. When I'm struggling with a problem and I update Pat on what I'm doing, he gives me the same advice. Stay strong, stay focused, and stay strong. While they are simple words, they apply to everything we do. We share the passion for radio, and I feel good of what's ahead for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, if I have not said it enough, it's my honor and privilege to introduce one of this year's Massachusetts Broadcasters and Dundee Hall of Famer, Mr. Patrick Costa.
Very kind words from a good friend. Thank you. Thank you, Jose. I'll try to be brief because I know we're all trying to eat. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow members of the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame, I stand before you today deeply honored and humbled to accept this prestigious recognition for my contribution to the broadcasting industry, particularly within the realm of Hispanic radio stations. This moment is an accumulation of years of hard work, dedication, and unwavering support of countless individuals who have played pivotal roles in my journey. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to my beloved wife. Your unwavering love, encouragement, and understanding have been the driving force behind my success. You have been my rock, my confidence, and my source of inspiration. Thank you for standing by my side through the ups and downs and always believing in me. To my cherished family and friends, both near and far, your unwavering support has been a constant source of strength. Your sacrifices and understanding have allowed me to pursue my dreams in the broadcasting industry.
I am eternally grateful for your love, encouragement, and for being my biggest cheerleaders. This achievement is as much yours as it is mine. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the incredible team of professionals who have worked tirelessly by my side. To my dedicated staff, thank you so much for your unwavering commitment. It is your talent and hard work that have made our Hispanic radio stations a beacon of community, culture, and unity. Each and every one of you has contributed to this recognition, and I'm immensely proud to have you as part of my team. Today, as I stand here as a proud member of the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and express my heartfelt gratitude to the Hispanic community and anyone present here today who shares in our rich Hispanic heritage. You have enhanced our radio stations, our programming, and our mission to amplify our diverse voices and have propelled us forward and allowed us to connect with our community in meaningful ways. This recognition is a testament to the power and significance of our collective Hispanic voice. Being chosen as part of this year's class is an incredible honor. I am filled with immense pride to join the esteemed ranks of the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame. This recognition serves as a reminder of the tremendous responsibility we hold as broadcasters. Let us continue to use our platforms to amplify diverse voices, share untold stories, and foster unity within our communities. In closing, I want to express my deepest gratitude to Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame for this remarkable distinction. To be recognized alongside the trailblazers and industry icons who have shaped the broadcast landscape is truly a humbling experience. Thank you once again to my wife, my family, my friends, my dedicated staff, and the entire Hispanic community for your unwavering support. I accept this honor with immense pride and a renewed commitment to continue serving our listeners, our community, and the broadcasting industry with passion and dedication. Thank you all, and may we continue to celebrate the power of radio and its ability to bring people together. Thank you.
Walk over here for a second. I want to give you a plaque. I've asked Pat to stay here for just one moment. He's promised to give me the name of his tailor. The Guys and Dolls collection. I have to have that suit. Pat Costa, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to do my Joe Pesci impression, but nah. What are you, a clown? I wasn't going to do that. Thank you, Pat. We continue. And this next individual is certainly deserving, but is very special. I happen to know her. In fact, she happens to be a guest on my podcast this week, On Mic with Jordan Rich. And she's applauding for herself, because it's a damn good podcast. Let's watch the video. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to have to wait. You're going to wait. You're going to wait a little bit longer, because we have someone first to honor. So why don't we look at this next video?
Thurman had to experience the backlash of the conflicts that were going on between races. And being in the news media, he had to film it. And I can remember a time when busing was the issue. And Thurman was involved with having to go to South Boston to film the kids getting off those buses. Thurman was shooting it as a black man, as a black parent with children in the Boston public school system, as a father, and being sensitive the way he is, was shooting it from a side that other photographers couldn't relate to.
It is a great honor and a personal pleasure of mine to introduce the man who's going to introduce the award for Thurman Toone. For 31 years, he became one of New England's most recognized and consistent broadcasters on the TV trail. He was inducted into the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame in 2013, and he is the one and only Gary Armstrong. Gary?
The first thing I'd like to do, and excuse the frogs in my voice, I want to thank you very much to the Toone family for asking me to be here and do this little introduction. That was perhaps the best thing to happen to me in recent years. I also want to say, those of us making the introductions have a time limit. My wife would tell you that I've never met a microphone that I haven't loved. Linda Mealy, who is the news director of Channel 7, is here, so I think they have the hook that they used to have for me because I always exceeded the time limits of my reports, and I have so many things to say about Thurman. When I arrived here in Boston back in 1970, that's more than a half a century ago, and that scares me. Boston was a different city, and I was one of the few reporters of color working on the big three television stations, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7. I learned very quickly, having come from New York and having worked for ABC, I learned how different Boston was. Boston was a big little city, maybe small in size in terms of population, but it was like a village because everyone knew everyone else. Thurman Toone was one of 2 or 3 reporters, photographers, photojournalists. One news director referred to them as button pushers. He was so wrong. But Thurman took me around to the various neighborhoods and introduced me. I didn't know it at the point, but that was my get out of jail free card. That was my liberty to go to various neighborhoods when things were not going well, and they would look at me and say, "What's your name again?" "Oh, you work with Thurman Toone, so you're okay." And that's the way it worked for many, many years. I was looking at Thurman's bio, and by golly, it looks like my resume, which should tell you something. For all the things that I received awards for, and people remember me for, the person behind the camera for almost all of those stories was Thurman Toone. Thurman would tell me as I was getting up to the camera to do what we call a stand-up, the thing that wraps up your story, I would have my head full of grandiose things to say, like I really knew everything, but I didn't. Thurman would whisper in my ears, "Gary, here's what you should say." And I would just parrot what Thurman Toone told me. And when I said it, it sounded erudite. It sounded like I had known the area for 30 or 40 years. That was only due to Thurman Toone's presence. I learned later on that Thurman, before my arrival in the late 60s, Thurman had been one of the first black photographers to work in the city of Boston. And he got the pictures of the city as it was in the aftermath of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, and the city was not a good place then. And the media did not necessarily make things any better. But there were people like Thurman Toone who knew the people in the neighborhood, black, white, brown, yellow. They welcomed him because they knew that He was trustworthy. They knew he was honorable. When he came in to say, I'm just taking some photographs to show how the city is doing, how your neighbor is doing, how your family is doing, how your children are doing, they knew he was telling the truth. He was a man of the city. And he passed that on to some of the reporters at Channel 7. And we are all the better for that. And for whatever laurels that are passed along to us along the way, they go not only to Thurman Toon, but a bunch of the other photographers who, some of the names may mean something to you. People like Richard Chase, John Premack, and others who were there not only for the people they worked for, they were there not only for their station. We were friendly competition. We all wanted to lead. But they would take the time to make sure that mic holders, as we were called, that we knew what we were talking about. That made us better, and that made the news you got more accurate. During the time of the busing crisis, as it was called, very often network reporters came in, international reporters came in. There were reports of Boston during that time, that tumultuous time, that it was a city being ripped apart by black activists and white families who didn't want black people in the neighborhood. That might have been true on some level, but that really wasn't the story, because the common denominator during the busing period was the lack of quality education. And that's what we heard when we talked to family after family after family, and neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. And it took a long time for that to sink into the brains. I say that lightly, the brains of the people who were the community leaders and the political leaders of our times. But Thurman and the other camera people that I have mentioned, they knew that. That's the heavy part of what I want to talk about Thurman, because Thurman was the kind of fellow who had, if you didn't have all these lights on and you just had Thurman Toon walking into the room, that smile of his would light this ballroom up like anything. A couple of Thurman Toon stories. We had back on the Mondays of the week, we had at Roxbury District Court what we called the Weekend Roundup. The Weekend Roundup was the gathering of all the people who had been arrested over the weekend. They would bring them in the wagon to Roxbury District Court to be arraigned. Now, all of the reporters from the various stations would have their mics right near the wagon as the people got out, because we wanted to get that great soundbite that would make our report and make our newscast. And usually they wouldn't say anything, and most of what they said to us, you couldn't use on the air. So we were really, really frustrated because we wanted to get this soundbite. And as we're standing back and watching these people get off the wagon and go into the courthouse, what you would hear from time to time was, "Hey, Thurman! Hey, Toon, how are you?" That's because Thurman knew everyone. And he would say from time to time, he would beckon someone to come over and talk to me or talk to another reporter. Thurman had that kind of inside nuance with people. They trusted him. There's another Thurman story covering busing again. Some of you know this story. We were wrapping up a report someplace in Dorchester, maybe it was South Boston, I don't really remember. Remember, this is more than 50 years ago. I saw a group of people approaching me. We were shooting film. So in my mind, all I was concerned about was getting the film back to the studio so it could be processed. That would take 15 or 20 minutes or more. And so I added on that time to the driving time back, and I thought, I've got to get this film back. That's what was on my mind, not the people approaching. They clearly were unhappy with me. They were unhappy with us. And they started yelling some things, racial things, and they had rocks and bottles and stones, and it didn't look good. And I looked over to my left, and I could see my film crew, and they would say, "Gary, you have to get out of here. You have to get out of here." I'm still thinking about, do I have everything I need? Well, they got fairly close, and it began to, even in my mind's eye, it began to seem dangerous. And I was thinking, what can I say to extricate myself from this scenario? This is before Mel Brooks. Remember that, before Mel Brooks. So I'm looking over the crowd, and they're yelling all of these nasty things. And I said, wait a minute, because they had thrown the N-word out at me. And I said, wait a minute, guys. I'm not an N. I'm a Samoan. And, you know, they looked at me, and they believed me. That's how stupid they were. And I couldn't believe it. This sounds like baloney, but it really did happen. For many years, people were thinking that I was a Samoan reporter. But you could hear Thurman's cackling as we walked away from those people who thought I was a Samoan. And that was Thurman Toon. Another Thurman Toon story. We were assigned to interview Sybil Shepherd, the actress. This was in 1970s. I think she was still doing Moonwatching, if I have that show correct. And she was doing a musical review at the South Shore Music Circus in Cohasset. So the assignment was interview Sybil Shepherd. Terrific, right? Right. So we get there, and Sybil Shepherd is just wrapping up her show. Now, to back up a little bit, this is the middle of the summer. I had on, I don't know where I brought this sucker because I was so into dressing up, but I had on this silk Italian leisure suit. So that tells you what the era was. And no shirt underneath, and I had the leisure suit buckled at the bottom of my waist, so you could see the big hairy chest. And Thurman had on a dashiki that was open like this, and you could see the big hairy chest. And we were looking at each other and smiling at each other and thinking, oh man, we're really great. We're really great. Well, Sybil Shepherd comes in. I'm being reminded of the time. Sybil Shepherd walked in. I'll wrap it up with this. And she looked at Thurman, and she looked at Gary Armstrong, and she had this big, wide smile on her face, and she said, oh boy, we're going to have some fun tonight. And Thurman looked at me, and I looked at him and thought, wow. And she said, I know you're Gary Armstrong. And she said, are you the fellow they call Newt? And of course, that was Thurman's nickname. Everyone knew Thurman. And this is definitely the last story, even if the clock is ticking. Billy D. Williams, the actor, came to Boston. This was back in 1976. He was promoting the film Lady Sings the Blues. And I got to tell you, there was so much commotion in the Channel 7 building. The women were screaming and falling over. And Billy D. Williams comes into the newsroom, and he looks it over, and he looks at me, and he says, are you the fellow interviewing me? And I said, yes, Mr. Williams. And he said, okay. And then he looks towards Thurman, and he said, Thurman? Thurman, is that you? And Thurman looks at me and smiles and says, yeah, Billy, it's me. How you doing? And then Billy D. Williams says, well, how's it hanging, Mr. Thurman? And the two of them go over into the corner, and Thurman Toon and Billy D. Williams are talking for 10 minutes. And then they walk back over, and Billy D. Williams says, Thurman says you're okay, so I'm going to give you some good stuff about Hollywood. And I looked at Thurman, and I said, just bless you. And he smiled, that big, white Cheshire cat smile. That was Thurman Toon. He was a legend. A real legend, and they don't print them like that anymore. God bless him.
Accepting the award for Thurman Toon is his daughter, Nikki. Nikki?
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. On behalf of my father, my family, and friends that are here today, would like to thank the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame for honoring him in this very solidifying way. This honor is so special to us because we all know how much my dad put into his craft. I'm sure I can speak for family and friends that are here and people that knew him, that you couldn't picture him without a camera. and you probably still can't. He made a career out of his passion and had a unique view of the world that showed through his work. He was also passionate about sharing what he did with community members, family, friends, and it's evident in the number of people who have chosen this career path because of him. To this day, I hear so many stories still about the impact that he made on their lives. When going to work every morning, I used to say, "Oh, Dad, you going to work now? What time?" And he would look at me and say, "I never worked a day in my life." That's always has amazed me, and I look to find that joy in my own work. I'm looking for that. He loved what he did, and I'm really happy to see that love return today. If you spent time with my dad, you would have recognized that he had a lot of different sayings. And he also made some really thought-provoking points. My brother and I, we often talk about all the different ways and the things that he used to say that have impacted us. One thing that he taught me was that everyone has their significance, their place of significance in this world, and not to let anyone tell me that I don't have a place of significance. He had 10 siblings, and it was valuable for him to know his place among his siblings. He would say, "I'm one of 11, the oldest of the 3 little ones. That's my place." And when I was younger, I would be like, why is he saying that? But now I know that's who he was. That was his position. I'm sure he had other ways of taking his place in this world, but I'm happy today to see that he has taken his place here at the Massachusetts Hall of Fame, Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Thank you again. This means so much to the Toon family and everyone that loved Thurman Newt Toon. When leaving places, you may have heard this. My dad used to say, "Toon's out, stay tuned." Today, I'm really happy to say, Toon's in. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for everybody that was here.
By the way, in case anyone's wondering, the popularity of Thurman Toon today is still very evident because I believe, this might be a record, Peter, 6 tables of friends and family and supporters. Give yourselves a hand. That's incredible. All right, now it's your turn. Thank you for being so patient. We're going to start this video with a tinge of music because it's very appropriate. Gentlemen, if you would be so kind.
Did I know instantly that they were going to be the big band they are today? No. But did I think they were going to have a bright future? Yeah, absolutely. I sure did.
Linda Ronstadt on WAVA Allison. The Beatles before that, Hey Jude. America did Head and Heart. Billy Joel, Just the Way You Are. We started with the Starship. Light the sky on fire. Sunny and cold today, highs in the 30s. Clear and cold again tonight, lows in the 20s. Good morning, I'm Donna Halper. 33 degrees at WAVA.
I'm a media historian, and the thing that I love to do more than anything else in the world is tell the stories of people who have been forgotten and written out of history. The privilege for me is writing some of these men and women back into history, because without them, the amateur radio game would not have been as interesting, and the commercial radio game would not have been as interesting, because so many of the early broadcasters, even the singers, even the accompanists, they studied amateur radio. Some of them maintained that tie till the day they died. It is my privilege to tell their stories. Thank you.
To introduce Donna Halper to the gathering today, we have a gentleman, a colleague of mine at WBZ, and Donna's a frequent guest on this man's program. His name is Morgan White, Jr. You know him as the king of trivia. What you may not know, come on up here, Morgan. What you may not know is that he is officially banned from the set of Jeopardy and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because he knows everything. Please welcome Morgan White, Jr. to officially introduce Donna Halper.
Now, before I get started, I have a piece of paper, and my intro for Dawn is going to be under 2 minutes, promise. But I want to say to the Toons family, Thurman lived in my neighborhood, or I lived in his neighborhood, Academy Homes. And everybody in Academy Homes, all the kids, knew him. We'd see him pack up to take his equipment to do whatever he needed to do. I truly respected that man, so I wanted to say that. And I know there are 6 tables, but this is 1. So for the other 5 tables, I tip my hat to Thurman Toon. But that's not why I'm here. Glasses on. The Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines a broadcaster as a person whose job is presenting on television or radio. And I hope you listen to every word of that simple definition. I am sure that in the 50s and 60s, some dictionaries would have used the word man instead of the word person, because the environment for broadcasting in those days was primarily a job offered only to men. Just like that famous ant, Donna had high hopes and got back up to move that rubber tree plant time after time after time. Today, I introduce my friend, a broadcast historian, a woman who knew in her heart and in her mind and in her soul, even as an undergraduate at Northeastern University, that she had the skills to do the job as it needed to be done. The woman honored today with the Hall of Fame Pioneer Award is the author of 6 books. She has worked at radio stations from sea to shining sea and introduced the world to the rock band Rush. To me, she embodies the word broadcaster. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a well-deserved round of applause to inductee Donna Halper.
Wow. I can't believe I'm here. I really can't. I can't believe I'm anywhere. I'm a cancer survivor, 8.5 years. And I know there are people in this room that have been on that journey. And I know that there are people in this room that have lost people. And I know that there are people in this room who, like me, by the grace of God, have survived. And I'm still here. And I mean it when I say, I'm amazed I'm here. But I gotta tell you, even on my worst day, being alive is such a privilege. Thank you. And I hope I'm not talking out of turn here if I quote some scripture. Not to turn this into something, but if there's a favorite verse of mine, because I used to be a chaplain way back when, it's from the Psalms. This is the day the Lord has made, we will rejoice and be glad in it. There is so much for me to rejoice about today. I never expected this. When I was a kid growing up, I grew up in that era where women were told that they couldn't be on the radio. You could be a receptionist, you could be a secretary, you could marry a DJ, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But that wasn't what my dream was. My dream was to entertain people. My dream was to inform people. My dream was to educate people. But above all, my dream was to be on the air. And I was told repeatedly that I couldn't do it. Somehow I kept at it. I don't know how, but I somehow kept at it. I became the first woman to be on the radio at Northeastern University in October of 1968. And somehow the Republic did not fall. Although I do remember having some guys standing outside my studio waiting for me to make a mistake so that they could say, "See what happens when you put women on the air?" Oh, my friends, I did not make a mistake. Years later, I had a general manager say to me after I asked him for a raise, he said, "You're never going to be anything in broadcasting. You don't deserve a raise." But you know what? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And every time, I'm kind of like that old song from the early 90s, Chumbawamba song, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down. And every time somebody would say something like that to me, it motivated me. In 1983, I won the award at the Pop Music Survey for a Consultant of the Year. And he was in the audience, that general manager who told me that I'd never be anything. And I held up the award and I looked right at him. I didn't say anything. Mom raised me to be a lady, you know what I'm saying? But he knew. He knew. I stand here today surrounded by people that I've admired all my life, and also surrounded by people who have been there for me. And I appreciate that. I appreciate my husband, John Jacobic, who has stood by me, who has cared about who I am, and who has recognized who I am. And I say that because I grew up in a time when what you wanted to do and what you believed in wasn't recognized.
When I got on the air at Northeastern, the first thing I wanted to know was, who's my mother? Now, I mean, obviously I knew my biological mother, and God rest her soul, I hope she's proud of me. Hope my father is too. But I wanted to know who my broadcasting mother was. Who was the first woman on the radio? So that I could thank her. Because you know what? We're all standing on people's shoulders. I mean that, okay? The reason I spend so much time telling the stories of forgotten broadcasters, particularly women and people of color, but also even the men who didn't work for like giant corporations like, you know, Westinghouse and RCA and General Electric and iHeart and stuff like that. In the smaller markets, there are broadcasters who are what a broadcaster should be, a best friend. The broadcasters like that are the ones whose stories I wanted to tell. And I've spent my life telling them. I did find out who that first woman was. Her name was Eunice Randall, and I was happy to see her get inducted, and I was here when it happened. She had passed, but she had living relatives. And by the grace of God, I will continue to tell the stories of the men and women who contributed to us. And if in some small way I've been that kind of person, if I've inspired people when I was on the radio, if I entertained them, if I informed them, if you've read my stuff, if you've seen my webcasts, if you've thought in any way that I've done something positive, then I'm very grateful for that. All I've ever wanted to do, ladies and gentlemen, is just to make a positive impact. I am so glad to be here. I am very thankful for the people at the various tables who have reached out to me and said that they thought that I deserved this award. I don't know if I deserve this award. I don't know if anybody deserves anything. You work hard, you do the best you can, you hope that somebody notices. I'm glad that somebody noticed, and I am profoundly grateful for the opportunity to be inducted. Thank you.
Some fine words, Donna. Thank you so much. Sports is everything in New England. We all suffer through the Bruins and the Celtics. Oh, my God. But we love them nonetheless. We also love the people who deliver the sports news to us, good or bad. So please give your attention, if you would, to this next video for a great guy and a guy that everybody likes.
It began in the spring of 1982. The local kid from Swampscott, son of a high school coach and teacher, the new face on the sports desk, and he caught on fast. Comfortable with himself and legends like Bobby Orr, Larry Bird, Doug Flutie, Roger Clemens, Governors too, and pairing up with WCVB's Hall of Fame lineup of Natalie, Chet, and Dick. He grew up a fan, but covered every team with poise and professionalism, always appreciating his front row seat and access to history.
And the Patriots will get the Bears on Super Sunday.
Patriots Preview and Patriots All Access, providing the chance for a deeper dive, quality time with Parcells and Belichick, and getting them to open up. Mike was the quarterback kicker for Harvard. They were playing Yale and New Haven. The game tied 7-7, 33 seconds left. He kicked a 26-yard field goal to give Harvard its first ever outright Ivy League title.
Good! Mike Lynch hits a 26-yard field goal.
And from that moment, paying it forward to other student athletes by shining the spotlight on them, whether during his Thanksgiving Day high school football highlight show.
How's the turkey going to taste today?
It's going to taste real good today.
Or in a much-loved weekly feature. And when Tom Brady was on his duck boat for his last Super Bowl parade, the crowd was screaming his name. Mike actually interviewed Tom Brady before his first game, September 2001. And in classic Mike Lynch fashion, wrapped up the interview this way.
Continued success. I hope it works out great for you.
3 decades of work that say everything that needs to be said.
This afternoon's luncheon is all about winners, no question about that. And to introduce Mike Lynch formally as another member of that all-star team, and of course, is a name we all know and a lady we all love, Natalie Jacobson. In her 2022 book, Every Life a Story, Natalie Jacobson Reporting, she talks about her 40-year career in broadcast television, including 35 as a reporter and anchor on WCVB TV Channel 5. She is the first lady of television news in the eyes of many of us. Please welcome her and Mike Lynch to come as well.
Thank you. I like Mike. That was one of the best promotions we ever had, that along with 5 is family. Hello. I'm delighted to be back with so many friends and colleagues. Thank you all for being here. You know, the best part about being in broadcast is that you know it's a team sport. Nobody does anything all by him or herself. And that is what I love the most about our business and miss the most today. So Mike Lynch. The thing about Mike Lynch that makes him different, or actually let me say it this way, that makes him successful is that he's a fan. He's a fan just like we are fans. He's sad when the team doesn't do well or the star makes a mistake, and he's absolutely thrilled when they make it. There's no cynicism. He's just a fan, and you could relate to him. An athlete himself, it's no surprise that as time went on, he wanted to recognize the boys and girls in school who did well. He understood very well that sports is very much a part of the good part of growing up and helps fill those holes of being a teenager, which can be so difficult. So he created High Five. The very first time High Five went on the air, as we reminisced the other day, was during Hurricane Gloria, 1985. As soon as that piece went on the air, the phones lit up at the Channel 5 newsroom. People wanted to say, wait, I know this kid, this boy, this girl, who's done great at such a place, such a sport. And that's how High Five was born, with the enthusiasm of all of New England. Mike looked for people who were good in their sport, but who also worked hard at their scholarship and who were good teammates, because that's Mike. He's a teammate. And of course, near and dear to my heart, as a gal who was around when there weren't too many sports for girls, he included girls. So High Five had its share of plenty of girls. It was a salute to these kids. It was an inspiration to these kids. They saw themselves in their colleagues who were celebrated on Channel 5 television, by golly, by the great Mike Lynch. That was a big message for our children. You should be really proud of that, Mike. Arguably, Boston is America's sports town. We've got all the sports, right? The Celtics, the Bruins, the Patriots, the Red Sox. When I was a kid, I was stunned to find out that girls couldn't play baseball professionally. Seriously? I was 2 when that happened, okay, to give me a little bit of credit. So I had a hero, Ted Williams, and so on, all the girls and boys had their bedrooms plastered with celebrities from Hollywood, Demi Reynolds, Eddie Fisher. Yeah, I go back that far. I had Ted Williams. So for me, to have Mike celebrate the sport and be able to sit with him in 2004. How many were here in Boston in 2004? You can never forget it. The city was alive. We were high on the Red Sox, wherever you went. Hey, did you see that hit? Did you see this? Did you see that? You just couldn't even breathe. It was so wonderful. I have a nephew who's a Cubs fan in Chicago, and he said, oh, I took him to a Red Sox game, and he said, oh my God, you people in Boston are unbelievable. You don't remember every game. You remember everybody pitch and hit. That's a Red Sox fan, and we're all Red Sox fans. So to be able to get over whatever the hard news was, good or bad, on that particular day and sit next to my buddy Mike Lynch for just a few seconds and be able to say something about the Red Sox, that was the highlight of my day every day in 2004. That's part of being a broadcaster, because you know you're sharing it with everybody that's listening as well. So Mike, you have earned the respect of your coaches, two of whom are here today, of your colleagues, the table of Channel 5. It's still a family. Of the children that go to school, they're not called children anymore, the kids that go to school in high school, the inspiration that you have been, and you have earned the respect of your fellow fans. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is totally my pleasure and honor to present my buddy, Mike Lynch.
Hey! Thanks, Nat. Wow. Thank you. Why did I pick Natalie Jacobson as my presenter? Now I have to talk after her. It's like going on stage after Taylor Swift. Where's Bob Lobel? Lobie, where are you? Over here? Lobel and I are going to have a race out in the hallway afterwards, all right? We'll be taking bets in the corner of the room, so you can place your bets now. You have them until about 1:45. The race starts at 2. My money's on Lobel, by the way. Thank you, Natalie, for that great introduction. You read it exactly as I wrote it for you. Thank you very much. You did a great job. I remember my first day in a newsroom was the day I had an audition to work at Channel 5. And I came there, and Minnie showed me where the newsroom was, and I opened the door, and I went, oh my God, there's Chet Curtis, there's Natalie Jacobson, there's Dick Albert, oh my God, there's Martha Bradley, oh my goodness, there's Jorge Kyoga, there's Janet Wu, there's Susan Warner, there's Jack Harper. Wow, what am I doing in this place? I wanted to turn around and run away as fast as I could. Approaching me was this woman who came right across the newsroom, stuck out her hand and said, hi, I'm Natalie Jacobson. And I said, no kidding, I thought you were the parking lot attendant. She says, welcome to Channel 5. You're going to do very well here. I said, oh, thank you. So all my anxiety and all my fears were relieved just by Natalie coming over and saying that one thing to me. And she was that way her entire career. If there was a new person or an intern that came in, she went over and just diffused the situation and made them feel so very comfortable. So after I met Natalie in the newsroom, I went into the news studio to watch a newscast because I was going to audition at the end of the news. In those days, the news ran from 6 to 7. So Brian Leary was doing the sports, and I was to use his script at 7 o'clock for my audition. And as the news went on, I sunk lower and lower and lower and lower in my chair, and I said, get me out of here. This is going to be so bad. So around 7:15, I did my audition, and it was basically The Red Sox played the Detroit Tigers today, an exhibition in baseball. Let's now look at the highlights. And it was, boom, right down there. It was so unbelievably bad. It was horrible. It was horrible. I would not have hired me for Needham Cable, all right? So we go to Jim Thistle's office, and Jim Thistle, the renowned news director, the late Jim Thistle, is sitting up there, and he said, Mike, what'd you think? And I said, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, 6 months minimum, I might be ready to anchor a newscast. He says, well, you know what? You don't have that long. You're on tomorrow night at 6. How do you like that? And that was it. I was in. So years later, I ran into Jim, and I said, you know, Jim, I've looked at that tape dozens of times. What were you thinking that night? What were you thinking? He said, you know what? I always kept a bottle of scotch in my bottom drawer of my desk. And I think I had at least one under my belt when I looked at your audition tape, and I said, you know, it looks pretty good to me, and we're in. Oh, I was so lucky to work at Channel 5. The only station I ever worked at, the only station I ever wanted to work at, the one I watched when I was a kid. And from the people, you know, it's almost impossible to fail. When you get a director like Dorothy Will talking in your ear, hello, Scoop, you ready to go? I said, yep, I am, ready to go. And you know, you get a producer like Nick Terry who says, listen, Lynchy, this is the way we're going to put the show together tonight. You said, okay. And they get your photogs, you get Steve Menard and Mike Cole, who are running the show, and I just get out of the way so I don't screw it up. I mean, really, it's almost impossible to fail with the people that you have there. It was just so very, very comforting, and you knew you were professionals all the time. The two people who hired me, gave me a full-time job after Jim Thistle, were Jim Coppersmith, the general manager, and Phil Balboni, the news director. And Phil would always say to me, do something distinctive to separate yourself from the other two stations. And that's how High Five became about, because we needed something distinctive. And I was thinking, now, what will be your model every single night? And Jim McKay I was a big fan of his work, and I heard him one day in Wild World of Sports. He said, you know, I said, what I strive to do every show is inform, entertain, and occasionally inspire. And I said, wow, what a great barometer to use every single night. So that's what we used every single night at Channel 5. The weather people, Dick Albert, Harvey Leonard. You know, I was there for 40 years, and the weather office probably moved a half a dozen times. And to this day, the weather office has never had a window. How does that happen, Harvey? Does not have a window. I came in one day about 5:45 from someplace, and I was soaking wet, and Dick Albert says to me, oh, is it raining out? I said, you're supposed to tell us that it's raining. But Harvey and Dick would spend more time in the sports office than they would in the weather office, because they say, why did the Sox manager leave the pitcher in? We should have tanked him out. You got to go to your bullpen earlier. And I'd have a simple request. I'd say, all right, Harvey, you know if it's going to rain Friday afternoon at 12:26, I get a tee time for golf? He says, I don't have no idea about that. I'm just worried about the Red Sox the pitcher. And that's how it happened. You know, thanking people is not an easy task. And I've been very, very blessed to be supported by a great family. My brother Terry, my sisters Mara and Tara are here. And if you haven't met my mother, she's 91 years old. She's over there, Joanne Lance. Mom, stand up and say hi. She'll probably see you before you go out. Hey! Thank you, Mom. My first job was at WITS Radio, and I got $10 a game to broadcast Harvard football. And their line was, we sent you to Harvard to get $10 a game to Harvard football? And I said, Mom, and Ben, you like this? I said, trust the process, Mom. Trust the process. And most especially my wife, Mary Ellen. We all know working in, especially sports, there's always a game on Mother's Day. There's always a game on Easter Sunday. There's always a game Thanksgiving. There's always a game on a holiday and an anniversary. And not once did I hear a complaint. Not once, ever, ever. And I thank you so much for that, Mary Ellen. But for always being there. And most importantly, thank you for your love and support the last year or so after the stroke happened a year ago, May. You've been absolutely incredible. And thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, she's going to change her name because she's tired of hearing, Mary Ellen, Mary. So if anyone else knows how to legally change a name, come see Mary Ellen at table number 5. She'll let you know. To the Hall of Fame committee, thank you so much for even considering someone like me. I just have revered so many people that are in the Hall of Fame. They are people that I've looked up to, and now I'm one of them, and I couldn't be more tickled. I worked at Channel 5 for about 40 years. We're just starting our second 50 years, and we are in great hands because of Kyle Grimes, our general manager. Kyle, great job. So I wish I worked under you, but awesome. And Margaret Cronin, the news director, is doing a great job. And don't forget, we had long after Chet and Nat, there was Maria and Ed. And they're over there right now, and they took time out from their busy day to come in. Ben Simino, Anthony Everett from Chronicle, Russ Nelligan, we got everybody, and Josh Brogadier, who's in the sports department now. You were in the sports department, the news stole you, but now you're back, right? But anyway, I always tell, when I conclude, and especially when I speak to young people, I said there are 3 types of people in the world. Those that make things happen. You got that in focus, Mike Cole? All right. I want to make sure you're awake back there. Those that make things happen, there were those that watch things happen, and there were those that wonder what happened. And Channel 5 always made things happen for all of us that worked there. It was the greatest place to work, and I'm so very, very proud to be a small part of a great tradition at Channel 5 and to be among all you people today, and all today's inductees and all the other members of the Hall of Fame. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you. Is that right here? Okay. Oh, all right. Wow.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay.
Right there.
Excellent. That's Leroy McLaren's son, by the way. He was the editor for us at Channel 5. A great editor. Everybody? Yeah, well, pretty much. You've been around long enough, you know everybody. All right.
We'll take care of that.
Okay.
Give us that.
Sorry, folks.
No, you're doing great.
Yep.
Right there. Yep.
This particular luncheon, the theme sort of resounds around family. Broadcasting is a family. Donna mentioned it. Others have mentioned it. So before we get to our final 2 inductions, we've got several families. Let's see. Channel 5 family is evident, right? You guys? Nice round of applause from Channel 5. But there's also a greater media contingent here. Where's the greater media contingent? They don't want to be known. Okay. Witness protection. No, seriously, WBZ and company, we're certainly proud to be here as always. And we know that Pat Costa and his group are from the Merrimack Valley area. Anybody else from Merrimack Valley? Look at that. Wow. Unbelievable. Well, it is a family, I always say there are 2 kinds of people in broadcasting and broadcasting people. I think the latter is the case. You're all broadcasters today. So, our next inductee is the word intrepid, dedicated, and professional certainly meant a lot when you describe this gentleman who's left us. Please give your attention to the screen as we celebrate his induction into the Hall of Fame.
Bill Shields.
Bill Shields was a cherished member of the WBZ team and an irreplaceable friend. In 41 years of reporting, he covered a lot of ground.
In Linfield, in Framingham, Peabody,
Foxborough, in Woods Hole, in Hingham, in the North End, in Situate, in Duxbury, at Fenway Park.
Bill moved through life with a youthful exuberance.
Stop it now. What? Go ahead, I hear you.
He helped Boston usher in the new
For the most part, the Alewife station is getting high marks from the writers so far.
and say goodbye to the old.
Sure, we all love the old place, but maybe it is time for a new romance. You're gonna see the force. Jesus. Sorry.
When the weather was at its worst, Bill was always the best. Pounded by wind, rain, snow for hours, wearing storm gear, and often wearing a smile. The native Texan became a hardy New Englander, whose humor was as powerful as a hurricane.
This is sideways rain. I love it. It hits your face. It's like 1,000 needles going in.
To know him is to know his stories off camera were just as great. Bill, Billy, Shieldsy, whatever you called him, it was always easy to call him a friend. He was a trusted reporter, a valued member of the community, and part of our family.
To say Bill will be missed is like saying Bill was a great reporter. It's an understatement. Bill loved Boston, and Boston loved Bill. A true WBZ legend.
Such a valued member of the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Here to introduce this part of our program, a resident of Boston South Shore. Catherine studied at the Washington College of Law at American University, Brandeis University, and UMass Amherst. But more importantly, for this purpose, Catherine Rossmore was the wife of the late Bill Shields. Please welcome her.
So I really want to thank Peter Brown and the Mass Broadcasters Association for choosing my late husband, Bill Shields, for this honor of induction into the Hall of Fame. Okay, let's just acknowledge that we all wish Bill was here with us. He was a fun guy. It would be more fun if he was here. But on a serious note, I think to me, it is personally important to keep Bill's memory alive, and I really thank you for that. Bill had both an innate sense of storytelling and a clear understanding of the visual nature of a television news story, and he believed the videographer was equally, if not more, important than the reporter. In fact, he aimed to never put himself into the story, if possible. Bill's stories were built around his connections with people and his love and fascination with the news. He was a self-proclaimed news junkie. I recently mentioned to Peter that one of my complaints was the news was on all the time, especially after he retired. But now I kind of miss knowing what's going on. As a child in Texas, he would read the morning paper with his father, and he watched Charles Kuralt reporting from Vietnam on TV. And he always wanted to be that kind of reporter, a storyteller. He eschewed pretension, and he would not call himself a journalist. For many years, Bill was paired with a photog, as he would say, whose craft was impeccable and whose skill Bill appreciated and admired. As soon as I heard that I could choose who would accept this award on behalf of Bill, I knew it had to be William Meservey. Bill and William had a unique partnership spanning more than a decade. They were kind of like the odd couple together. William Meservey was the quintessential foil for Bill Shields, quiet, reserved, and a perfectionist of his craft. Will, I would like you to accept this induction into the Hall of Fame on behalf of my husband and your great friend and colleague, Bill Shields.
Wow, room's a lot larger when you get up here. I'm going to deviate a little bit. I'd like to thank Peter in the hall for placing me after Mike Lynch. I'm kind of wishing I had paid, in all the years I was with Bill, I'm kind of wishing I had paid a little bit more attention to how he presented to people and stood in front of everyone, because I probably would have taken some notes had I known I was going to be up here today. First off, I want to thank Catherine. Oh, I should also say that I will not make it through this without letting my emotions get the best of me. So I apologize for that if I have to take a breath. But I want to thank Catherine in the hall for allowing me to get up here and stand in front of all of you. The talent in this room is immeasurable, and to stand here and represent Bill on this day is a privilege, and it's an honor that I will probably live with and remember for the rest of my life. So when I was asked by Catherine to speak on Bill's behalf, I kind of struggled on what to say. And I was asked, maybe just tell a story. And so I thought. And when I tell you that 90+% of my stories with Bill, I can't tell you. I know that statute of limitations is probably expired at this point, but it's better to be safe than be sorry. So I am going to respectfully decline the stories. I do have a couple that I will share that are PG and might be enjoyable. So I immediately went to what would Bill say? What would Bill say in front of all of you, in front of his colleagues for all these years? And he would be humbled. He would be so proud to stand here in front of all of you. But he would immediately transition to what Catherine just mentioned. He would say that it's not him, it's the people he worked with that allowed him to be who he is and allow him to present the way he presented every day. As Catherine mentioned, I was with Bill for just over a decade. I started with Bill in '95, on and off. And on our first day together, we were late. We were having barbecue in Newton, and we were late, and we got on the pike, and it was stopped. And the look of fear in his face, and I said, no worries about this. And I just looked behind me, put the news card in reverse, and we shot all the way back up that ramp. He looked at me and said, all right, we'll be okay. But to fall back on what I just mentioned about Bill and his desire to say that it's the photographers, it's the fellow reporters, it's the producers, it's the management staff that made him who he is. I'm going to say to you that as a photographer that was with Bill for all those years, he made us who we are. He allowed us to be the photographers that we wanted to be. He allowed us to excel in our craft and to present in the best light possible. So yes, it was a mutual relationship. But Bill, I know you're going to say it's all on us. It's not. It's on you. You made us who we are today. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Not only to all the photographers in the Boston market, but for Bill for allowing me to be who I am behind the camera. I've kind of lost my train of thought a little bit, so excuse me. As far as stories go, I do have a couple. They're limited, like I said, so I'll give you one little quick story. I'll give you a memory, and I'll give you a little factual thing. The story is one of the stories that's clean. We were sent to a house for a door knock. For some reason, BZ management loves sending Bill and I to door knocks. So we pull up to the house, and Bill previously had an incident with a German Shepherd. And when we pull up to the house, the first thing that we heard was a deep bark. And I'm driving, And I turned, and I had this flat look on my face. And he looked at me, and the fear that came over him, I've never seen it before. And I just started laughing. I started laughing so hard. He looked at me, and I said, "You're the reporter. Let me know if they're home." So he reaches back, he looks in the car, and at that time he grabs the mic. And he holds it up and he says, "Just in case." And I said, "Okay." He gets out of the car, the dog starts barking, and he turns around, and I am still laughing. I am laughing so hard I don't think I can breathe. And he gives me the "you're the number one" signal and marches off to the house. And when the front door didn't answer, he decided to go to the back. He went to the back, and when I tell you it was a fraction of a second, he came hauling around that corner, hair blowing back. I'm surprised he didn't drop the mic, jumps into the vehicle, looks at me and says, "No one's home, we can go." Now, I probably shouldn't say this to the news management in the room, but I'm pretty sure that trick still works today. The other thing I'll share with you is that Bill and I worked the South Shore pretty much. Well, towards the end, we worked the entire New England area, but we were pretty much assigned to Boston South. I grew up in the Cape. Bill and I actually lived very close to each other, and I would pick him up in the morning, and we'd go about our business for the day. And this hotel is where we would come to every afternoon that we weren't live. And we would park in the garage, and we had a clean line of sight to the city, and we would work on our story, and we would feed it back, and then we'd head home. And this is the first time I've been back to the hotel since. And we liked coming here because, it was protected, it was covered, but the reason we really liked coming here, other than being close to home, is that we loved events like this. Because once we would park, one of us would get out and cruise up to this hall and look for the little bar stands and little table things that would have drinks and food, and we always came back with a plate full. So, thank you for the Marriott. The other, this is more of a memory for Bill. This will probably get me. One memory I have of Bill is that we were assigned to go to the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy, and we sailed out of, I want to say, Norfolk, and we came into Boston. And one night, Bill pulls out a bottle of amaretto. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but you really shouldn't have alcohol on a naval ship. Maybe they do, but he snuck it on. And we sat up, one night, we sat up on the flying bridge off of New York, pitch black, stars, looking down at the aircraft, peace and quiet, and talked about life. And all of our time together. I will never forget that. I will never forget my time with him. I cherish it every day. As Catherine said, I wish he was here because this would be a lot more festive and a lot more jovial. But he's a one-of-a-kind individual. I truly believe Boston, New England, will never witness or have someone like him working this market again. His ability to tell a story, his ability to get someone to talk, his ability to just bring out the best in people. You'll never see it again. I'll never see it again. So, on behalf of Catherine, on behalf of his sister Beth, on behalf of his two brothers, Tom and John, on behalf of his three sons, Raphael, Justin, and of course Tyler, and on behalf of every news photographer who's ever had the pleasure of working with Bill, thank you. Thank you very much.
And now we come to the final inductee, and want to say hello to my colleagues, and it's always great to have a colleague not only nominated but inducted into the Hall of Fame. Please bring your attention to the screen for Boston's Poet Laureate, Carl Stevens.
We had a shooting at another clinic here in the 1800 block in Brookline. I'm with a lady who saw it all. Ma'am, I know you're very emotional right now. Tell us what happened.
The guy was right behind me.
What guy? What did he have?
The killer. He had a shotgun.
What did he do inside the clinic?
He shot over 6 women.
No, Mo. Mo, don't go. Please don't go, Mo. Mo, don't go.
He's big enough to knock it out of any park, but not a field in the world is as big as his heart. Thank you, David Ortiz, you shining star, for showing us how good we can be and how good we are.
How can you tell men to come out of the building when you got 6 men in the building that are trapped and you know that they'll no longer be with us?
On a Friday night in December, 6 men went into a burning building to save lives. They lost their own. And for the men who survived, I suspect that that warehouse will always be burning, that fire will never be contained. Carl Stevens, WBZ News Radio, 1030.
And here to introduce one of our favorite storytellers is the morning drive anchor at WBZ News Radio, and that would be Jeff Brown. Jeff, join us.
Thank you. Thank you. For those of you who don't know some of the magic of WBZ News Radio, let me share some of the secret sauce with you. 40 seconds. 40 seconds is what we give our reporters to tell their stories every day. That's it, 40 seconds. It's not a lot of time. Think about it. So what that means is you have to find the right story. You have to understand what that story is. You have to boil that down and edit that story. And then you have to tell it compellingly on the radio in 40 seconds. And by the way, you have to find a way to let the subject of that story tell most of it. That's the magic of Carl Stevens. He perfected that as a cub reporter, and he continued that into his grizzled veteran status. And he did it better than anyone. And along the way, Carl found that he had an ability to tell these stories in rhyme and become the poet laureate of Boston radio. And so when we would indulge his storytelling in these 2-sentence couplets from time to time about the trials and tribulations of the city and the celebrations and sometimes devastation of a country, we would say, Carl, we're going to give you 60 seconds. And we'll let you tell it in your own voice. You know, I came to WBZ News Radio 12 years ago, and when I got here, it had been after spending 20 years in corporate management for a radio network. And with all that experience, I walked into the WBZ newsroom and started putting faces to these voices that I'd heard for years. And that's intimidating. And I don't care who you are or where you've been, like Mike Lynch said, that's an intimidating experience. And so I went about my business, learning the ropes and being a news anchor. And the first opportunity that I had to go on the air and anchor a newscast, I had completed that shift and walked out in the hallway, and I see this tall, bald guy coming towards me, and I'm thinking, brethren, right? I mean, we have the corporate haircut. And, so he comes towards me quickly, and he extends his arm, and he says, Jeff, Carl Stevens. And I said, not now, Carl. I have a tea time. And off I went. Because that's the kind of guy Carl is. He's the first to introduce and the first to become a mentor. So fast forward to just a couple of months ago, and I'm anchoring the news one particular morning. Don't recall exactly when, but I get a text from Carl. It says, Jeff, would you consider introducing me at the Hall of Fame luncheon? And so, my instinct was that this has got to be a joke, but because of all the people that Carl knows and of all the people that he's come in contact with, he wants me to introduce him. Very funny, good one. So I went about my business. And then I'm thinking about it, and I'm saying, you know what? Maybe he's not kidding. And so I looked at the text message again. It said, Jeff, would you consider introducing me at the Hall of Fame luncheon? Because that's the kind of guy Carl is. And I said, I would love to, but I have a tea time. So here we are, the 2023 class of the Broadcasters Hall of Fame in Massachusetts. And we all today get to call our longtime colleague and even better friend a Hall of Famer, because that's exactly who Carl Stevens is. So would you all join me in welcoming to the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame, Mr. Carl Stevens. Get up here, big boy.
Thank you, and thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. I'm grateful. And right now, I'm grateful for a whole lot of stuff. I'm grateful to the Broadcasters Hall of Fame for this honor. It means a lot. Thank you. I'm grateful. And I'm grateful to have had the opportunity over the past 40 years to work with so many amazing, talented people, and Jeff, you're one of them. And I am grateful to have worked for people who allowed me to experiment with different ways of telling a story, and I am grateful to have met so many wonderful journalists over the years on the sidewalks, in the snowstorm. Some of you are in the room right now, and it's so good to see you. The photogs, TV reporters, radio reporters, newspaper reporters, people who every day bring such passion, integrity, and intelligence to the adventure of journalism. I am so grateful for this ride. And I want to tell you a little story about how the ride began. In 1983, in the fall of 1983, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where I was living at the time, I was working as a dishwasher in a downtown restaurant, playing drums in a local rock and roll band. Gary, it's good to see you again. And acting in a local theater company. It was called Generic Theater. One day, for whatever reason, somebody in that theater company, and I don't remember who it was, but they said to me, you know, WBBX, a little AM station in Portsmouth, would like to hire someone who would follow the Democrats who are running for president, all those people who wanted Ronald Reagan's job. Just follow them, report on what they're doing and what they're saying in the months leading up to the 1984 New Hampshire primary. And I thought that sounded like fun. The only problem was I knew nothing about journalism. I had never had a journalism class in my life. It's a good resume I got, drummer. Anyway, never had a journalism class in my life, and I'm guessing the only magazines I read at the time were Sports Illustrated and Rolling Stone. But I had been an actor, so I thought maybe I could act like a radio reporter for a couple of months until the primary. So I went to WBBX, talked into a microphone, and I got the job. But my news director said we would prefer it if you not go on the air with that name. My name, the last name on my birth certificate is spelled H-A-A-R-E-R. Har. Nice to meet you. It's German. I've got a lot of Mennonite and Amish relatives in the Midwest. What do you want me to do? I asked my new boss, and my new boss said, why don't you take a first name and add an S to it and make that your last name? You could be Carl Michaels or Walters or Stevens. And so, for $180 a week, Carl Stevens was born. And I loved acting like a radio reporter. It was awesome. I couldn't believe it. U.S. senators, people running for president, would walk up to me like I was somebody, like I knew something. I was nobody. And the only thing I knew was that all of a sudden I was at a picnic of reality with something new on the menu every day, and there's no way I was going to leave that table. I wanted to get good at acting like a radio reporter. But how do you do it? Well, I turned on the radio. And I listened every morning to WBZ, and I listened to the morning anchor, Gary LaPierre, and when he talked, I talked. You should have seen me in that car. It was just stupid. The radio was my classroom, and Gary was my teacher, and 10 years after that, I was working with Gary and Gil and the rest of the wonderful team at WBZ. And it's been awesome. It's been great. But I got to admit, I feel a little funny standing up here right now and being honored, because what I've been doing is what most people do at the end of a day. I'm just telling what happened in that day, in that hour, in that moment. And I was reminded of this fact, the fact of our job, one day when I was at a fire. It was a big fire in some city. I don't remember where it was, but that fire went out. There was a lull in the action, and I was hanging out with Jack Harper from Channel 5, longtime reporter. He had more to teach than I will ever learn. And Jackie and I were watching all the TV reporters lining up for their noon live shots. And Jack turns to me and he says, you know, Carl, this job really isn't that tough. All we do is what most people do at the end of the day. All we do is say what we see. And I wish you could see what I see right now. Suspended in the air about 30 feet in front of me is a young man with a full head of hair sitting on a motorcycle with a pair of drumsticks in his back pocket. And I know that young man. He's shaking his head in disbelief. I have seen him sweating in long, hot, flat fields in Michigan, baling hay and moving irrigation pipe. I have seen him on top of houses in northern Indiana, hammering down shingles. In the cold of November, he knows what work is. And he's looking at me, shaking his head and thinking to himself, that son of a bitch hasn't worked for 40 years. And he's going into the Hall of Fame. Are you kidding me? That just isn't right. It isn't right. Well, I'd like to tell that young man, and I guess all of you too, that I don't know if it's right, but God, it feels good. And I am so very grateful. And you know, leading up to today, I was thinking about all the stories, all the people, all the faces, 40 years of them, and it made me feel old. But I am old. I'm 67 years old. I no longer dance to the music of a police scanner. I no longer rush out the door. And compared to the reporter I was, I am kind of over the hill. And I thought about that a couple of days ago. That phrase actually made me smile. Over the hill. And the smile got even bigger when I looked over my shoulder and saw that wonderful, marvelous hill that has been my stage on which I've been acting like a reporter for 40 years. And it's been awesome. Now, just stay with me for one more minute. And let this old man wrap this up with a poem. In the fall of 1983, I found the perfect fit for me. I finally had a place to go when I got a job on the radio. Every day different, no two the same, going here and there with my made-up name. I didn't have a journalism education, but I jumped right in with no hesitation. I told stories of triumph, stories of fear, stories of laughter, and stories of tears. But the strangest story from all my years is the one I'm telling right now, right here, about an unschooled man with a made-up name who somehow made it to the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Hey, get back here, Carl. Carl. God, we were hoping for a poem, and we got a great one. It's mix and mingle time now, folks. The official ceremonies are over. I just want to remind you, Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame.org. Get your nominees in for next time, and thank you so much for making this a family event. Take care.